So in this presentation, we're going to install Codeblocks. Go ahead and Google it. Download the latest version. That's going to give you an IDE that you can use for your C++ projects. Now the IDE also going to need a compiler. The compiler that I would recommend is MinGW. So go ahead and Google that. And again, download the latest version. When you downloaded both, make sure that you install the compiler first. Okay, don't install the IDE yet. We need to install the compiler first, and then install the IDE, so the IDE will pick up automatically our compiler. So install it in a default directory, which will be a C/MinGW on your C drive. Okay, you don't need to change anything, just keep moving on, keep moving to the next screen, and then we're gonna install these 4 components that will give us the basic compiler for C++, and let install. It should take a little time to install, and if you need some of the steps, then you can go back and pause the video and make sure that you selecting the right components. We only need C++. After it installs, then we need to make sure that we go to the install directory. Okay, so this is going to be the path. I'm just copying the path, and we're going to add it to our environmental variable called path. You click on edit, type a semicolon, and type the path to your compiler. Save it, exit, and at that point you can install your IDE. Again, take everything default, and in a few minutes you have the IDE installed. Since we already have the compiler installed, when we start the IDE, it will not ask us for a compiler. Now if the window comes up and it asks you for a compiler, then something didn't go right. Let's start a new project, and we're gonna create a C++ console project. Here we're gonna create hello world. Make sure that you take note of the path where you are storing your projects. You can see that we have the new GCC compiler that we're gonna be using, and this is your source code. You can compile it. So you just click on the little red triangle, it compiles it, and you can start editing it. So you can see that it worked. In this particular case, it's waiting for press enter from the user because of that cin.get line of code. Now I just want to quickly show you also how do we read from files. Most people get a little bit confused about reading from files and writing to files. Okay, so at this point you can just copy the command if you want to, or you can wait for later on when we actually gonna cover reading from files. So you can see in the path, if you're using a Windows environment, you have to double the backslashes. And in this particular case, I'm gonna put my input file into C/temp directory. So my output file also gonna be in that directory. And we're just printing some text out into that file. Now when you're working with files, it's going to be very important that you close the files, the input and the output files, after you're done processing them. Also, when you use the cin.get, sometimes it is nice to have some message typed out something like please press enter to stop or to end this code. But this is just for us, so the terminal window, the console window, is not going to close down. So it's just a note here. I will put in something like remember to remove these 2 lines after you're done with the project. So these 2 lines, the C out and C in, is not part of our application. This is just for us to run the application and stop the console. Okay, so I have an input file. I can create this input file. You can put in whatever text you want to put in. Just don't put in space at this point. Okay. So you can see that because we are pointing it to C/temp, if the input file is not in the right place, it's not going to read it. So make sure that you put the input file in the right place. Now, if you don't want to mess with the path, then you can remove the path from the input and output files. In that case, it will look for the input and will write the output file to the same project directory where your source code is. So in that case, you don't have to worry about the path. Now quickly, just to show you how debugging works, okay? So here's a couple of variables. So we're going to declare variables and initialize variables, and you can see after the line numbers, you can click with the mouse and it's going to put in breakpoints. When you run the program, you're going to see a little yellow arrow in each one of the red dots. That's how you step through one line at a time in the code, and then you can follow the values of each one of the variables. So that's a quick introduction to Codeblocks. Hopefully you're going to like it.